Okay. Do we have water? Where? Show me. Where? Who? Can you take me?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so we can't close that. Are you all perfect? Good, okay, you know what you're doing. Yeah. We can get some water. And so you're going to take care of this. We've got all our presentations there already. Yeah. And just yeah. There's.
Does this fall asleep all the time?
No, I'm just having to stop the organisers.
Okay.
They're not providing water for us.
Not providing what?
They're not providing water bottles. I've just sent out one of my team members to go buy water for everyone who's here. Everyone's saying that they provide water. I don't understand what's going on.
They getting to the end of
They may have to go and then
use it somewhere central or yeah.
Me? No, him. Exactly. I'm not.
He's an excellency, so the excellencies have He's a fellow. He's a kind of gear. And he is really the one who is. No, they should see, yes.
Quand ça joue 48 heures, ça va, mais ça va, en fait, c'est bon.
I haven't taken control but that's really just a list of speakers. Yeah. And you're the panelist?
Yeah, yes, but I'm not the chief negotiator. That's Johanna.
Yeah, that's Johanna.
No, yeah, no, I work for the ministry.
Successor to
Annalise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
She's in Beijing now.
That's correct.
There you go.
Thank you. You're in Brussels, yes.
Yes.
So you know how to get it?
No.
Yeah, you want to. Oh, you want to sit here? No. I'm just gonna get the first.
Okay. So they're all open.
Is this the first one?
Yes.
As I said, bye-bye.
Yes. It's on. Yeah. Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panel. We're here in one of the last side events of a very, very long COP, and I want to congratulate all of you who still have attention span to listen. The issue or the subject of these presentations are the achievements of the State of Palestine, the very young member of UNFCCC family. My name is Otto Simonet. I'm from ZOI Environment Network in Geneva, and we have a very long-term cooperation with Palestine. I want to briefly introduce you the panelists here. Okay, I go from Her Excellency Adala Atira, the chairwoman of the Environmental Quality Authority of Palestine. Then to her left from your view is Rima Khalaf, Undersecretary General and Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. His Excellency Lars Rønnaas, the Swedish Climate Change Ambassador. Mr. Peter Wittok is the Belgian Head of Delegation of Belgium. Then we have another Rima Aboumidain from UNDP PAP. Then the person who is responsible for all this, Medal Katbe Badr. I think thanks to his energy, we're all here, and Palestine has become a member of the club. And finally, Dr. Mahmoud Abu Ebaid is from RICARDO, and he's done a lot of concrete work, and he can then answer all the detailed questions. So instead of wasting much time now, I would like Her Excellency Adala, please, to start with her presentation.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Dear colleagues. As you said that Palestine is the newcomer. We started working or putting concerns about climate change, maybe a little bit delayed, but because of our situation in Palestine, the climate change is not that our priority at that time, but we started 2009 as an observers. 2010, it's the first establishment of the National Community for Climate Change. This national community is nominated by the cabinet of our government. Last year, our president, he signed the convention, and then he signed the Paris Convention. So we are the first 15 champions to ratify and ratifying and accessing the Paris Convention. Before that, 3 years working towards to prepare our initial communication report to be ready that Palestine should be one of the first, let's say, and one of maybe it's the first state, the first party preparing itself even before it becomes a party in this convention. Palestine is divided because of the occupation. We have the West Bank with our Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, our capital, and Gaza Strip. I think the map, it shows that our boundaries, according to the international declaration on 1967, and also maybe you'll see a lot of settlements, around 400 settlements, illegal settlements on this area. Also, you can notice that there is an apartheid wall built, divided even our community into parts inside and outside the wall. And there is a lot of, let's say, violations and pollution coming from the Israeli side, from these settlements. And maybe you are familiar with the wars and the acceleration of the Israelis on West Gaza. So the situation in Palestine is very difficult according to this occupation and the violations from the Israeli side. As I mentioned that we should start, we took a decision. Thank you for Belgium government funded a project for Palestine to prepare. first communication report through UNDP, the staff, Palestinian staff, with UNDP, with RICARDO consultant, which they are unique really, and they are training even to build the capacity for Palestinians to prepare the second national report by ourselves. We should always be independent. So 2 years, there is a lot of work, workshops, mainstreaming, environment, climate change, and this project include 3 parts, which is the participation of preparation of our international initiative, national communication report, and then the assessment of national capacities and preparation of the NDP, which is the National Development Plan. It will become into 5 years. We start with the first stage or the first phase. Also, there is an implementation of 4 pilot projects with the ministries, different ministries, and also support for environmental NGOs through the SGP with UNDP. The preparation of the INCR, of course, we started in preparing our report, the greenhouse gases inventory report. It's there, and the mitigation plan and the national adaptation plan. And then through this work, 2 years, there is a lot of workshop, as I mentioned, almost 500 from ministries, from private sector, from NGOs. They are engaged in this preparation in order towards building the capacity and mainstreaming climate change in Palestine. The capacity development program, which is a 5 years plan, you know, there is it's a climate-related capacity assessment report to identify gaps and constraints, and the capacity development program, which is the first phase now, is ready, and we are waiting for continue the phases before.
I'm not doing a good job.
كمان هلا بدي اكون انا كمان معك اذا
This one?
هذا خلصنا نضال.
Okay, implementation of forest.
So
Go ahead,
now
go ahead.
go
I'm doing
3.
better
Okay,
by the
now
minute.
implementation of 4 pilot projects. We start work with the different ministries. We have 3 projects or 4 projects using solar energy of water pumping. This project is implemented through ministries, Ministry of Agriculture, Palestinian Energy and Natural Resources Authority, and Palestinian Water Authority. Then there is another project in different area in West Bank, South, West, and North, which is water harvesting. Also, it's now ongoing, implementing with the Ministry of Agriculture. There is a special project in Gaza Strip, which is energy audit for different institutions in Gaza. And then we have another project now with Ministry of Transportation for the emission test in transport sector. We work with NGOs. 6 projects were being implemented. And one of these projects is targeted the charcoal industry in Palestine. It's a traditional industry in north area of West Bank. And early morning, I heard that the Israeli defense or the administration, they confiscate all of the equipment of those people who are working in this industry. No. Okay, thank you. We have a regional project in order to building also our capacity. We work with Clima South regional projects funded by the European Community. It's a project with 9 countries with a fund cost around 5 million euros, focusing on as I said, on capacity building. There is many workshops targeting high level seniors officials. Also, there is another one, which is the vulnerability and assessment of climate change impact on Gaza coast. Then the economic impact of climate change. This project now is started, and then prepare ourselves for the MRV and the MRA. Okay. For Green Climate Fund, you know that, as I mentioned before, that we prepare our adaptation and our mitigation plan, and we are seeking to be a part of the climate fund, the Green Climate Fund, the other facilities to finance our plans. So we took a decision from the cabinet that EQA was nominated as National Designated Authority, and there's a submission of readiness program. We asked for it, and I think maybe you heard that there is an obstacles putting towards even take or get funds from different facilities. And I think all of you that you are familiar with the part trying to put obstacles towards Palestine or any development in Palestine. You know, in Gaza Strip, now more than 95% of our water, it's not suitable even for human. So we are concentrating now to build a desalination plant for water. And there is work with the EIB, the European Investment Bank, seeking for a fund in order to have Gaza Central Desalination Plant. This project, we are concentrating on renewable energy. Okay. You need help, Nadal.
Sorry.
Okay, أنا بقرأ من هون إذا خلص. Sorry. Green climate. No. No. Another one. NAMA facility, you know, we try to be engaged in the NAMA's fourth. There is a lot of workshops in Palestine in order for training the ministries to prepare themselves, to prepare proposals. There is a hard, let's say, time consuming ourselves in order to get the ministries and even the councils in Palestine to prepare their own proposals. And now there is 3 proposals for trying to have this fund from this NAMAs. I think this is funded by the EU. Our Ministry of Agriculture prepared its own proposal, and another 2 Palestinian institutions trying to prepare themselves, and now they are submitted 3 projects for the NAMAs. كلها تلخبط عندي. سوري. هاي خلصت. فيك تمشي كمان. خلصناها. وين وصلنا يا نضال؟ Go to the challenges, because I think I will take a lot of time. So the main challenge is, let's say, about what we are facing in Palestine, the lack of access of means of implementation and financial resources, technologies, and capacities, lack of proper legislative and regulatory framework. So now all of the ministries is working to, let's say, update our regulations, our laws and bylaws in Palestine to be suitable for climate change. Then the lack of appropriate institutional framework, and the project now is ongoing with the cabinet and with the ministries. And the main challenge, it's the Israeli occupation, which is, putting all the obstacles for Palestinian to go out to proceed with any development or to implement projects, because, all of the regulations and the obstacles they are putting on with the Palestinians. For example, to take a license for building a landfill in Palestine, it took us more than 10 years to take a license from the Israelis, and the permit. It's usual having us many years in order to take these permits from the Israeli side. Future horizon, creating and enabling environment to implement national climate action plans, providing essential means for implementation by finance and transfer of technology and capacity building. Okay. This is the situation in Palestine. We prepared our adaptation plan. This plan includes the vulnerable, let's say, sectors. The main three sectors is water, agriculture, and food. And if we have no water in Palestine, I think there is no development, and the situation, it will become more, let's say, more worse. You are familiar that the Israelis, they are controlling more than 90% of our aquifers. So if we have no water, I think there is any development in Palestine, in spite of they are controlling more than 63% of the area of West Bank. They are building settlements. There is a pollution from all of these industry settlement in Palestine. I think it's a challenge for us. We prepare ourselves. We have the adaptation plan. We have our mitigation plan, and we are working towards the NDCs now. I'll let the floor for Nidal to talk about the NDCs. This situation is very difficult, but we should be, let's say, ready for future. And thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for this detailed presentation. And we see there are many challenges, but what I'm most impressed is about the speed, the progress you've made. We work with you now for some years, and now just the last 2 years, it's absolutely breathtaking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would like to give the floor to Her Excellency Rima Khalaf. You will not use PowerPoint, as I understand, so we have less challenges, less technology challenges.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. And thank you, Adala, for inviting me to speak in this side event. And I would like to start by congratulating you and the State of Palestine for taking part in this conference for the first time as a party to the UNFCCC. Palestine, like every other country present here, shares the belief in our common future. And like every other country, Palestine is determined to take all necessary action to secure our planet's health. But in many other respects, Palestine is like no other country. It is unique in two ways. Palestine is the only country still under the military occupation of another in our post-colonial world. And Palestinians are the only people to continue living under the full domination of another in the third millennium. An anomaly that not only impedes the ability of Palestinians to protect their children from being killed, maimed, or incarcerated by the occupying power, but also their ability to protect their environment from Israeli onslaughts. Israel today exercises full control over the people's lives in Palestine. It hampers access by Palestinians to their own natural resources, including land, water, and food, as it impedes their access to health and educational services. Israel controls Palestinian water resources in the occupied West Bank. It exploits 85% of them for the benefit of its own citizens, and then sells back Palestinians their own water at vastly inflated prices. Under Israeli policy, the share of water available to a Palestinian is less than 1/6 of the share allocated to an Israeli settler living illegally in the occupied territory. In Gaza, the 9-year-old Israeli blockade and recurrent military offensives have been even more devastating. In addition to the destruction of homes and the ruptures to lives and livelihoods, the Israeli offensives left its mark on the environment, rendering Palestinians food insecure and largely dependent on humanitarian food aid. Furthermore, Israel has made the occupied Palestinian territory the dumping ground of its polluting industries. Over 1,000 Israeli industrial facilities have been moved to the occupied West Bank with little, if any, environmental regulation. Those include aluminum, cement, chemical, pesticides, and fertilizer plants. They operate on Palestinian land without the consent of the Palestinians. Coupled with wastewater from the approximately 250 illegal Israeli settlements, they cause pollution, drive up CO2 emissions, and take a heavy toll on people's health and natural resources, in particular water. These daunting conditions, however, did not prevent the Palestinians from action. Their struggle for their environment has now become part and parcel of their struggle for national liberation. Their climate change adaptation strategy and the program of action is one testament to that. Though this program cannot mitigate all the costs of occupation to their environment, with its focus on food and water security, it demonstrates a courageous step in the right direction. It is worth noting that the direct cost of the Israeli occupation to the State of Palestine was estimated at around $3 billion in 2010, or what is equivalent to 37% of GDP. Environmental damage in terms of air pollution and agricultural land degradation was estimated at around 3% of GDP. In a recent study, ESCWA estimated the cost of water resource degradation in Palestine at $675 million, or 9.1% of GDP in 2014. One might ask, how can Palestinians contribute to global efforts to combat climate change in such circumstances? This is the second point that makes Palestine unique: its people, their resilience, and their determination. The Palestinians and their institutions are acutely aware of the environmental challenges and threats ahead, and they are sparing no effort to tackle them. For they clearly see that under occupation, not only is their land occupied, their environment is also being invaded, and the future of their children is under threat. Palestine signed the Paris Agreement in April 2016 and was among the first parties to ratify it, as Adala has just shared with us. Palestine has also achieved remarkable progress in the areas of climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. It has proceeded with preparations for implementation of its nationally determined contributions and articulated ambitious plans for combating climate change, including the submission of a readiness program to the Green Climate Fund. In this, the Palestinian people has reaffirmed its commitment to our common goals and the well-being of humanity. Colleagues and friends, in the past, we have wronged our environment and pushed it to the limits of unsustainability. We woke up to the damage we caused, and we decided to change our trajectory. It is time to right another historic wrong. The Palestinian people cannot continue to be excluded from universal human rights, including their right to self-determination. The assault on their lives and dignity must stop, and the occupation must end. Half a century is just too long for any people to languish under the military rule of an occupying power that treats its victims as lesser human beings. The international community should not only support Palestine in meeting its NDC's commitments, but must also commit to supporting the Palestinian people in their struggle for their inalienable rights. The Palestinians deserve, like everybody else, to live in dignity and peace. They deserve to be free in their own state, and it is our moral duty to help them achieve that noble goal. For as Martin Luther King once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you very much.
Rima, thank you very much. This was very nicely spoken and very understandable. Now I want to move to people providing, or organizations, countries providing support to Palestine. His Excellency, the Swedish Ambassador Lars Renås. Please.
Let me see how can. Oh, it's on. That's good.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know myself.
Now, it would be difficult for me to manage this one since I'm not seeing the slides. I
Thank you.
resign as the manager
He
of
doesn't
my
have,
PowerPoint.
he doesn't have slides. It's more to show the other.
No, I don't have any slides.
You have to get out of this one.
Okay. And then, okay.
Escape again.
You can start.
I can start?
I just wanted to show the
I
progress,
see. Okay.
But I
Well,
don't
thank you.
know.
I want to thank you for inviting me to this panel. Her Excellency Adala Atida,
To close this one.
Her Excellency Dr. Rima Khalaf, and may I just say all protocols observed. It's a pleasure to be here today and to be represented on this panel for this important discussion. I'll just say a few general remarks and then more specifically on our collaboration with the State of Palestine. I think that if the Paris Agreement was a groundbreaking achievement in terms of establishing climate law, I think that the Marrakesh has shown is
Sit down, sit down. Stay seated.
as I was saying, I think Paris Agreement was a real breakthrough. It was long expected. And I think that 1 year afterwards here in Marrakesh, we can see a manifestation of the commitment to move ahead of this with 112 state parties being party to the Paris Agreement. There's a clear message, I think, coming out from the statements here that we want to move ahead. We are committed to this. And that's very encouraging, I think. I also want to congratulate the State of Palestine for ratifying the Paris Agreement. It's a very important statement and commitment. We ratified as well, the government of Sweden. So it's now part of our general commitment. I think it's very important to keep the momentum, both in terms of mitigation, adaptation, and financing. These are the three legs, so to speak, of the Paris Agreement, and we need to move ahead on all of them. My own country is very much committed to moving towards a fossil-free society. There is bipartisan support to have a fossil-free society by 2045. and we are working hard on it. We very much value our collaboration with the Palestinian Authority. We have a long-standing relation with the Palestinian people, but also and with the Palestinian Authority. We know that Palestinians and the authorities is working under very difficult circumstances, as was highlighted by the previous speaker. First of all, you are in a region which is prone or can be severely affected by the climate changes that we see coming. But you're also working under circumstances imposed by the occupation, which makes it more difficult to exercise and pursue your policies. We believe it's important, and I think we have heard here by Excellency Adaptation, all the work that you're doing to address these problems in the field of environment and climate. And a particular pressing problem is, of course, the scarcity of water and the control of water that needs to be addressed. We, in our collaboration with the Palestinian Authority, we are working in on a range of issues and fields, but one important part of our collaboration has been over time in the area of environment, and we are very happy to work with the Environment Quality Authority. We know that you have been engaged in designing a strategic plan for your environmental quality work, and you have been partnering with us on that. I think you have been working with your equivalent Swedish agency, the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, and this is a collaboration that we have cherished. I have not been hands-on myself, but from my colleagues, I hear that they are impressed by your work and by your dedication and by the expertise that you have demonstrated. So I think this bodes well for our collaboration in the years to come now. So again, I think that we are very happy to work with you. We know you are under very difficult circumstances, but it's important to have friends whom you can collaborate with. So we look forward working not only on the bilateral level or on the ground, so to speak, but also here at international meetings and to seek partnerships. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ambassador. I would like to pass the word over to Belgium. And I want to apologize for the technical hiccups, and I would like to thank Emilia for handling this now very smoothly. Okay, Mr. Peter Wittek.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't have any slides, so there shouldn't be any technical hiccups, except maybe in my voice now and again. For that, I have the water. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It's really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here and to speak on behalf of Belgium about our cooperation with Palestine on environment and climate-related matters, and in particular our cooperation with the Environment Quality Authority. As we heard, that on top of already extremely difficult circumstances, Palestine faces many threats as a result of climate change. And the implications of climate change have direct effects on water supply, on agricultural productivity and biodiversity, on human health and the economy, and the potential consequences of gradual desertification and increasing degradation of scarcity of resources are really of a serious concern. As we all know, tackling climate change is a global responsibility, and it requires immediate action. And the Belgian Development Corporation is therefore mainstreaming environment and climate change as a cross-cutting theme in its cooperation with our 14 partner countries. And our support to the Palestinian Authority has focused in that context mainly on awareness raising and strengthening of capacities of Palestinian institutions with the aim of integrating, as I said, environment and climate change as transversal themes in all policies, strategies and national plans. And the efforts of strengthening the Palestinian institutions has also contributed, I'm happy to see, to preparing Palestine to adhere to international environmental conventions and to benefit, hopefully, from their financial support mechanisms. Belgium Development Corporation support in this context was channeled through a delegated cooperation with the United Nations Development Programme on the one hand, for which a budget of €1.5 million was made available for the 2013-2017 period. And on the other hand, we also provide support through a dedicated fund that has financed several studies and local expertise. Although we think that our support has been an enabling factor, I would also like to underline that the success of our action is mainly due to the valued efforts of the Palestinian authorities themselves, and in particular, the Environment Quality Authority. It was thanks to their efforts that Palestine was able, as we heard already, but I'm happy to repeat this, able to become a party to the Climate Change Convention early this year on the 17th of March, and to the Paris Agreement before Belgium, I would add, on the 22nd of April in 2016, making it in fact one of the first parties having done so. And I really want to congratulate Palestine for these major efforts in such an extremely short time frame, which really is a testimony to its commitment to the fight against climate change. Further proof of this commitment is that even before becoming a formal member, a former party to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Palestine had already begun developing climate mitigation and adaptation policies, as well as reporting on its policies. And Belgium was happy to provide support for enabling Palestine to do so. And I would mention in this context, firstly, the development and presentation at the historic COP21 last year in Paris of a greenhouse gas inventory report, together with the first communication on mitigation policies, which involves, and this goes to the transversal nature of our support, involving many of the ministries concerned: planning, transport, agriculture, the water authority, the energy authority, the Central Bureau of Statistics, and in consultation with many other stakeholders as well. And the second achievement I would want to mention in this context is the drafting of the National Adaptation Plan and other chapters that were needed to complete the initial National Communications Report in line with the UNFCCC requirements. And both reports were recently submitted to the UNFCCC and can be found on the UNFCCC website. And again, it's really impressive how this has been achieved in a very short time frame following the adhesion to the UNFCCC. Now, when looking into the future, we see that Palestine's national policy agenda for the 2017-2022 time period is also integrating environment as a cross-cutting theme in all development sectors, including the sectors of education and local government, which are two priorities of the Belgian Development Corporation. And we are providing support in mainstreaming efforts, inter alia, through financing a local expert. And we're currently analyzing how we can provide further support in the most efficient manner. To enable Palestine to continue on its highly ambitious and progressive path in the fight against climate change, it's now important that it can get access to the financial resources made available for the parties under the convention through the Global Environment Facility, the GEF, and the Green Climate Fund. And we strive to contribute to this process by supporting Palestine in drafting a report on climate finance preparedness, a two-day training workshop on climate finance, and the drafting of proposals for fundraising. I would add to our efforts in helping Palestine implement the Paris Agreement, a recent initiative by my own department. I'm from the Environment Ministry, where we seek in building capacity in our 14 partner countries to help them prepare and implement the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. Finally, I would like again say that throughout the 3 years of partnership with the Environment Quality Agency, it's really encouraging to see that it has proven to be a very reliable and extremely efficient and most competent partner, and its staff are really highly qualified, very motivated and committed. And I think the Swedish ambassador said the same thing. They are really the driving force in advancing environment issues in Palestine and in bringing it to the attention of decision makers at the national and the international level. And they deserve all our support and encouragement. And I really applaud them for their efforts. And finally, let me underline that we, of course, also highly value the partnership with UNDP in implementing the project. We salute the efforts of Sweden in co-chairing the sector working group on environment. And finally, the good work done by the consultants from RICARDO AEA. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and thanks again for the organization of this.
Thank you very much, Peter. And you mentioned UNDP. I would like to give the floor to Rima now, another strong supporter of the TGV.
Thank you. And I think one of the disadvantages of being one of the last speakers is that you have nothing, left to talk about. Anyway, Excellency, Engineer Attire, esteemed speakers, representatives of governments and civil society, dear guests. I am honored to be representing the United Nations Development Programme of Assistance to the Palestinian People, UNDP PAP, in this event that celebrates the joint achievements and accomplishments that were a result of strategic partnership, strong political commitment, relentless efforts over the last 9 years. These achievements were not possible without the support of our strategic donors over the years, namely Sweden, the government of Belgium, and the EU. UNDP works in nearly 170 countries and territories, helping to achieve the eradication of poverty, the reduction of inequalities and exclusion. UNDP helps countries to develop policies, leadership skills, partnering abilities, institutional capabilities, and build resilience in order to sustain development goals. UNDP is working to strengthen new frameworks for development, disaster risk reduction, and climate change. UNDP supports countries' efforts to achieve the new Sustainable Development Goals, which will guide global development priorities for the next 15 years. UNDP focuses on helping countries build and share solutions in 3 main areas: sustainable development, democratic governance, and peace building, climate change, and disaster risk reduction. In all our activities, UNDP encourages the protection of the human rights and the empowerment of women, minorities, and the poorest and the most vulnerable. In the OPT Palestinian territory, UNDP PAP works together with the Palestinian people to fill their aspiration for sustainable human development based on self-determination, equality, and freedom. UNDP PAP has a portfolio of around $120 million supporting infrastructure development, poverty reduction, and economic empowerment, strengthening good governance and social cohesion, and safeguarding the environment and protecting natural resources. Building on its climate change, global and regional capacities, and long experiences in supporting developing countries of their national communication reports, NDCs, and climate change strategies, UNDP partnered with ECA, the Environment Quality Authority, and took the initiatives to developed the Palestinian climate change strategy and program of action in 2009, promote the agenda of climate change in the occupied Palestinian territory, and mainstream climate change in the national policies and plans, build the capacities of the different institutions in climate change mitigation and adaptation, support the government of Palestine, access environmental and green climate funds. What we have achieved so far. I'm not going to repeat what Excellency Dr. Abtili have mentioned, and the government of Belgium have also mentioned, I mean, regarding the submission of our first national communication report and being a party of the UNFCCC, which we are very proud of. However, I would like to shed, I mean, some light on other achievements related to climate change. Through our strong and diverse partnership with key institutions in the government of Palestine, such as the Office of the President of the Prime Minister, the Palestinian Water Authority, Ministry of Agriculture, and recently Palestinian Energy and Natural Resources authorities, civil society organizations, UNDP managed to address climate change and disaster risk reduction as a separate output in the United Nations Development Framework for the coming 4 years, the UNDAF of 2017 and 2020. This is a clear manifestation of the UN commitment to support national agendas and upscale climate change and disaster risk management at, on the ground. It is worth to mention here that also climate change and disaster risk management are key elements in the national policy agendas that are linked to community resilience that Palestine is very also committed to. As disaster risk reduction is strongly linked to climate risk and natural disaster, UNDP PAP has been working during the last 3 years with the government of Palestine and the Prime Minister Office and other UN agencies to mainstream disaster risk reduction and integrate it into national policies and plans. We are now proud to say that the government of Palestine is one of the first countries in the region and the Arab world to integrate disaster risk reduction in the national policies and plans. The Office of the Prime Minister, through general contribution and funds from Iceland, has led the development of legal framework and institutional arrangements for disaster risk management based on the Sendai framework of action. Water, agriculture, and food sectors are the main sectors affected by the impact of climate change in Palestine. They are also important pillars that support peace, security, and the resilience of the Palestinian people on their land. Therefore, UNDP have been implementing many programs and activities to support these efforts. For example, UNDP have a very long strategic partnership with the Ministry of Agriculture through the land development programs that many donors contribute to. The most important achievements are development of more than 40,000 donums, construction of cisterns, construction of agricultural roads, and planting of around 1.5 million fruit trees, and rehabilitation of underground water wells. We've also supported the Environment Quality Authority and the Ministry of Agriculture in developing the Palestinian desertification strategy in 2014. Other important project that is funded through the EU is downscaling a hydroclimate model for a joint catchment area between Palestine, Jordan, and Israel. Through this project, UNDP PAP fostered water management and cooperation between the three parties and built capacities in climate change modeling, collection and analysis of meteorological data. The challenges, I mean, despite all the achievements over the last 6 years, the accession of the conventions and the development and submissions of the National Communication Report and the very soon national determined commitments, the government of Palestine, UNDP, and their partners at the national and local level will have many challenges, I mean, in the implementation of adaptation and mitigation plans and the INDCs, including but not limited to I don't want to repeat again the issues. I mean, the first most important issue is on the Israeli control over Area C that constitutes 60% of the West Bank area. That any development project in this area needs prior approvals and permits from the Israeli civil administration, which sometimes take years to be granted. I mean, for those who doesn't know Area C is the most resource abundant space in the West Bank that holds the majority of the territory's water, agricultural lands, natural reserves, and land reserves that provides the economic foundation for growth in the key sectors of economy. The closure and the siege over the Gaza Strip for the last 10 years that caused delays in the implementation of projects associated with restriction on entry of needed goods and materials. For a country under occupation and many competing humanitarian and development needs and priorities, the environment and the climate change are not priority issues, sometimes to the government, but mostly also to the donors. Other challenges are linked to institutional and financial challenges. The most important is the lack of access to financial resources and related GIF and green climate funds. The government of Palestine will need and will count on the support of friends among the international community to access these funds to be able to meet its international obligations. Resource mobilization will be one of the major challenges in the coming period, and how finance can be scaled up to meet the competing needs of development in the occupied Palestinian territory. On how to support enabling environments, including strong policies, legal, institutional, and budgetary frameworks in order to attract finance at the national and regional level. Technical assistance and capacity development gaps in terms of readiness to link climate finance to monitoring, reporting, and verifications, and how this will be applied to both the provision of support and how MRVs can be strengthened. Despite all these issues and challenges, I would like to shed a light on some good example from the Gaza Strip where I come from. For example, UNDP, have just finalized the removal of 1.1 million tons of rubble that have been generated through the last war. At the same time, we are adopting, in our infrastructure development and reconstruction plan, some climate resilience, infrastructure. For example, through our Education for All program, we are now building better. Schools, we're building schools and rehabilitating, schools, ensuring that those schools have emergency shelters, have solar panels installed, have desalination units, as well as wastewater recycling schemes. So this is an opportunity that we are in Palestine hoping for and depending on. To conclude, UNDP PAP affirms its commitment to the Palestinian people to support their resilience and improve their livelihoods through supporting the government of Palestine, delivering its agenda on climate change and sustainable development goals. It will continue to cooperate and support capacity development, provide technical assistance, and support resource mobilization and access green funds. Towards the end, I would like to thank the government of Palestine for inviting UNDP PAP to be part of this event, our strategic donors supporting the climate change and disaster risk management agendas, Sweden, the government of Belgium, Iceland, and the EU. ZOI International, the organizer of this event who made it possible, and to thank all of you for coming and listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rima. Also, thank you for the understatement that you had nothing to add. It was very nice to hear some detailed information about your projects. Now, the floor goes to Nedal, the engine behind many of the things we were talking about.
Thank you, Otto, and welcome again in the Palestinian side event here. It's highly welcome your interest in hearing about what we have in Palestine. I'll just try to be very brief about what we are doing with regard to the NDC. Thanks for the Belgian government again for being able to support us for this part. His Excellency mentioned that we have received 1.5 million euros for enhancing the capacities of BA and mainstreaming environment and climate change. And this component is additional for the original one. Thanks again for their positive response and being able to do this homework before we came here to COP22. And this is our promise, and we are trying to fulfill our promise to the Belgian government. And I'm talking about it is still a draft because it needs some kind of approval from the government. So we are now almost in the final steps of this NDC preparation, in which all stakeholders are engaged, and just it needs some kind of approval from the government. His Excellency Ms. Adala mentioned about the main achievements in Palestine. The overview with regard to the NDC, our NDC is now, as I mentioned, is almost finalized. Most of our partners and stakeholders on the government and in the different sectors are well engaged, and we were very happy and lucky to have this component is ready after we have everything is fresh with regard to the NDC and the NAB. We were working on the NAB for the last 30 months almost, and on the communication report and the NAB as well. So the information and the resources are very fresh. The people are well motivated and well engaged. So this is why we're able to do this homework in this record time, and we are happy that what we have on the mitigation side, adaptation side is almost well reflected in the NDC. It depends in the communication report and the NAB. In addition, currently the government of Palestine is doing some strategic plan for the coming 6 years. We usually have a three-year cycle for development plans, but currently we have a strategic plan for the coming 6 years from 2017 to 22, sorry. And in this only just we want to be ensure what we have missed in the communication report or the adaptation plan will not be missed in the communication report. So if we have some new issues raised in these strategies, will be on board in the communication report. As you all were aware, and Her Excellency Dr. Rima shed light about the impact of Israeli occupation on the daily life of the Palestinians. The problem of Palestinians is not a climate change. Indeed, it is with the occupation. What the occupation is doing, the occupation is a multiplier for every worst thing in the country. So when we're talking about the impact of occupation, a lot to be discussed in that regard. We have these plans, we have these ambitious plans, we have ambitious achievements for the last couple of months. It will be faced, and it is already faced by the occupation control of our natural resources, borders, lands, whatsoever. So whatever you have of such plans, you will have facing problems. As Her Excellency mentioned, we need for, in some cases, 10 years only to have or to secure permission for wastewater treatment plant or sanitary landfill or whatsoever. So this is such kind of plans. It is usually faced by such kind of difficulties with the Israeli occupation. Our NDC, as like any other developing country, is focusing on adaptation. We know well that mitigation is not our priority, but our engagement in mitigation only just to show the world we are engaged on the concept of common but differentiated responsibility as respected capacities. We are trying to do our homework in mitigation. On the ground now in Palestine, we have a lot of mitigation actions being happening now. So we are sending message that we are well engaged in that regard, and we are trying to share the burden and to join the efforts with other countries in the world. Our NDC will be focusing on 2 areas, as I mentioned, for adaptation, and we have time frame from now to 2030 for mitigation, and we have from now to 2040. With regard to adaptation component, indeed, we're focusing on the reduce climate sensitivity or increase the adaptive capacity for the Palestinians. And in short, we are talking about enhancing the resilience of the people. In this NDC, we are recognizing, and this is what we recognized earlier, and we have in the communication report and the National Adaptation Plan, we have more or around 80 interventions with regard to adaptation. And that NAB, we recognize 12 sectors, 12 development sectors are being highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change. So we have the National Adaptation Plan and interventions for these sectors. I'm talking about West Bank, including East Jerusalem and Gaza Strip as well. So we have such kind of interventions. Indeed, and we are not focusing on the long term, but we are focusing on the immediate near future adaptation options that address highly vulnerable sectors. And as I said, we are targeting 12 sectors, among them, as Her Excellency Dr. Rima Khalaf and Excellency Ms. Adala mentioned, water is the main issue in that regard, and whatever reflected from water on agriculture, food production, food security is highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change. So we have this clear vision with regard to adaptation. We are going from now to 2030, and this is a very important thing. And indeed, it took time to be happen, and we were lucky to bring all these while it is fresh on board. With regard to mitigation, as I said, it is not our priority, but we are engaged in that regard. We are ready to commit and to deliver in that regard. But with regard to mitigation, we are eager to look for conditional international contributions committed to the conditionality of international support, finance, technology, and capacity building. And indeed, we have an ambitious target, and we already have such kind of targets in our national adaptation plan and our mitigation plan. And as Your Excellencies all mentioned before, Palestine is a unique case, and we have a special circumstances. We are a special case. Why? Because of the occupation, and the occupation have impact on everything, especially with regard to planning and implementation of issues. So this is why I think maybe it is only Palestine and among this globe who have two business as usual and two scenarios in that regard. So we assume our hypothesis that we don't have occupation. We are full independent sovereign country, have control over resources. So we developed our national adaptation plan in that regard. We developed our mitigation plan in that regard, assuming there is no occupation. We have full control. The Palestinians and the refugees, they are coming back to their homes. So we have this vision, and this is our right. This is our legitimate right, and everyone in the international community support this and recognize this. So we have business as usual with the independence, and we have mitigation plan under independence. In that regard, we have an ambitious target of 24.4% reduction when we have full independence and we have full control over our resources. While the worst case scenario, if the occupation is still there, and we hope not, and the ugly occupation is still controlling our daily life as currently, we have the worst case scenario of the status quo, in which we have less ambitious target, in this case because of the occupation impact on our ability to do our plans and to implement things on the ground. So we have 12.8% reduction by 2040 with regard to the business as usual. And as you mentioned, we can double our efforts and double our target by having no occupation on the ground. In addition, the NDC sets out a number of unconditional mitigation actions which the State of Palestine is currently undertaking in the energy and agriculture sectors and other. We have a large solar projects on the ground with the renewables. We have a lot of ambitions. We have a lot of plans. But now, in this case, I'm talking about we as already implementing on the ground. And this is clearly send the message that we are committed to mitigate the emissions of Palestine. Although in the communication report, we recognize that the Palestinian emission per capita is 0.5 ton per capita per year, which is far below most countries of the world, comparing this to other countries. And this is almost 10% of the emissions of the Israeli citizen. With regard to the mitigation plan, the estimated budget is for the coming from now to 2040 is $1.5 billion, almost estimated at 70 million a year. And here we are talking about the taking into consideration the abatement cost of the decreasing the emissions. I'm not going through the sectors. We almost recognized, or we defined 10 sectors that have high potential in order to decrease the emissions. And I think there are, and we were using the LEAP software in that regard to have different alternatives and to see what are the most where are the most potential in that regard. So the total cost for the National Adaptation Plan is $3.5 billion for the coming 10 years for the 12 sectors in the West Bank and Gaza. And indeed, I have to mention that when we are talking about this money, we are not talking about the official development assistance. We know well that the budget for the Palestinian government is mainly coming from through the ODA and through the ad hoc liaison committee that supports Palestine. So when we are talking about this, we are not competing our government for what the limited resources we have. We are looking for new and additional. We are looking for additional and above. This is why this is the concept of the multilateral supporting mechanisms. As Your Excellencies mentioned, we are talking about GEF, we are talking about the Green Climate Fund, we are talking about Adaptation Fund, we are talking about CTCN as well. So this is our target, and our message from the first day in the COP here, that Palestine did a great achievements in that regard in this short period, record time, record achievements. So we should not be excluded. We always hearing that no one should be left behind. This is our message. Palestine should not be left behind. We are doing our job. We are trying to do our best in that regard. So we should be recognized by the international community. And I'm glad to mention that just 2 days we had a meeting with the Green Climate Fund, in which they informed that Palestine is in the system, and they will send an official letter in the coming 2 days in that regard. Also, we met with the CTCN, and they offered their support in that regard. We already submitted the readiness program, the Gaza Central Desalination Plant proposal, especially on the renewable energy component, and so we are ready to engage and to deliver. With regard to the next step in that regard, I'm leaving the floor to Dr. Abu Abeid from RICARDO, who are supporting Palestine in that regard, and thank you so much.
So Dr. Mahmoud will get an award for the last presentation of the last side event, and I hope in the end we have some time for discussion.
Thank you for that introduction. It is the worst thing to do is to be the last presenter, the last day, and the last sort of session on the day. So I'll be very brief. I'm Palestinian, British, so I'm proud to be sitting here. First, I would like to thank Her Excellency for allowing me, and Mr. Nidal as well, for allowing me to be here talking to you about our work with Palestine. Being Palestinian, living overseas for so many years, Palestine is always in the heart. And when we had the opportunity to work with Palestine, I jumped with joy. So this is a result of me working with Palestine, feel home after all. So I led a team of experts from RICARDO Energy Environment, the company I spent about 22 years of my life working with them, and the national experts. And the whole idea was actually building their capacity in there. So we have people from Birzeit University, Hebron University, Islamic University in Gaza, and we have other projects working with the Najah University. So there's a whole idea of developing the know-how in Palestine, and that's why I come into it. So the conduit to that. So it also has been a pleasure working with EQA's team and your team. They're a wonderful team, and also with UNDP. So for the last 2 years, it's been an interesting journey for me personally. So I have, as I said, I'm the last speaker, so I have a few slides. I'm technical, I'm not political, so it'll be more technically boring stuff for politicians in there. So I have to say something about the company I work for. There's a reason we've been selected to do this work over the last 2 years, that we are an international consultancy. We cover projects across the world, from Vietnam to Latin America, from South Africa to north of Europe. But my area of interest is the region, and then we have a number of projects in the region here, from Morocco to Tunisia to Egypt, etc. But as I said, the closer to the heart is Palestine, and then after that is Jordan. So this is that priorities for me. That's just to give you a flavor why we've been selected for doing this work and sharing the journey with Palestine. A few slides in terms of you heard, I mean, also the bad thing about being the last speaker, you heard it before. So I'll try not to repeat too much of what has been heard before. I was just going to say that it was Palestine, achieved a lot over a short period, and thanks to all people involved with this. It's only been about a couple of years working on a national, initial communication report and the national adaptation plan. So I'm just going to focus on what I've been involved with our team in this. We work with, that's before they become full member of UNFCCC agreement. We developed inventory, and that was a nice challenge for Palestine and for the stakeholders to be involved with that. Glad to say they already have a systems in place, and then they learned quickly, and they were really motivated to work with us. We also developed the mitigation options and mitigation plan. We carried out a full assessment in terms of vulnerability and adaptation assessment, in this case, on all sectors, and which Nidal mentioned. And we put all that together in a national communication report, which is glad to say that I heard that was submitted early this week. So that's great for Palestine. But also at the same time, we were given an opportunity to develop the national adaptation plan. The company I work with is a quite enormous company. So it's about 600 experts in terms of energy and climate change and environment. So my job to make sure that when Palestine asks for something and we have opportunity, I will select the best available in the So on that basis, we developed the national communication report and the national adaptation plan. And currently, post-accessions, we're still ongoing. Nidal mentioned, and you heard it earlier, in terms of the NDC, the final draft now is developed, and then hopefully that will be done, will be finalized after it's been going through the comments soon. And also started a capacity building project with the institutions in Palestine, and that's looking into the legal, the institutional, and the financial elements of it. And then will be some workshops, hands-on. As I said, the whole aspects of our commitment to Palestine is to provide the capacity in Palestine, transfer the know-how. And I'm glad to say that we were also successful winning that project in there. Just to focus a couple of slides, and I'll leave you to go home after that. So in terms of the NDC, what Palestine needs to do for implementing the NDC. This is, we as RICARDO Energy and Environment, and Emilia sitting there. She's an author of a guide about the implementation of NDC. If you are interested, you could talk to her. I'm not that sort of expert in that area, but we believe that there are three overarching steps, the main steps of, for NDC, and that is the preparatory work, developing the implementation plan, and then after that is that obviously the thing is delivering that. So on that, in terms of the first step, submitting the NDC, and as I said, there's a draft form now, so hopefully it will be submitted, and then consider key strategic questions that need to be, considered as part of the plan, and perhaps the scope of the plan itself. And some countries, they might have a comprehensive approach. Some countries will have a modular approach and add up more to it. So we need to make sure that Palestine will get the right sort of recipe for situations in Palestine. Also, I'm not sure if Nidal mentioned as a time frame for the plan. I think it's about 10 years now. So
with the adaptation, 10 years.
Yeah,
the mitigation, 20.
That's right. Yeah. So in terms of developing the NDC implementation plan, first you need to do gap analysis to understand where you stand in the first place. This is things to be done yet. So this is what flavors what Palestine needs to address in the future. Assessing the resources needed, obviously, because if you don't have the capacity, you can't deliver it. So the whole idea is that hopefully part of the exercise we do in terms of capacity building, we try to understand what the gaps are also in terms of capacities in Palestine. And then you need to give considerations in terms of the priorities, your appropriate in terms of sequencing of activities, and then set the priorities and put things in place. And after all, you need to document what you do. So if you don't actually have it, and I know a number of countries, our countries probably it's not the worst, but they don't have documentations of things they do. And it's probably not centralized, not in one place in there. So that would come to the point where later on in terms of MRV and what is required for Palestine to do there. And as I said, the third step is delivering the NDC implementation plan. This is coordinating climate actions between all parties. Capacity building, which we mentioned, that is already progressing. So as I said, always seems to be Palestine now. Once on the go, they are always first. They're trying to be first. And for me, it's nice to hear that being Palestinians, that Palestine is pushing as much as they can. So ongoing stakeholders engagement, and I really praise all the people involved in Palestine, all stakeholders were really committed. They did really work from their heart, and then when it's required, they're always there, except when it's very snowy in there. So sometimes it's not, and it does happen that they do get snow in Palestine. So it's, as I said, that will continue hopefully in the future. And obviously the NDC doesn't have a life cycle of 20, 30 years. It has to be reviewed on a regular basis. So they need to keep that in mind in the future development. And this is just my last slide in there. Consideration for Palestine's roadmap in terms of the NDC implementations. We believe there are 5 pillars. And I said this has come from my colleagues' sort of documents. The first 3, or perhaps I will start with the adaptation mitigation strategies, which is that to improve the resilience of Palestine to climate change and deliver greenhouse gas targets as well, greenhouse gas target reduction target. The other 3 pillars, which, as I mentioned, MRV. MRV is this essential element to be able to see what you've done and what you need to do in there. And I'm glad to say we, as a company, we've been successful in winning the MRV for Jordan. And hopefully we will learn some of these lessons from Jordan as well. We could pass it to Palestine in the future. Climate finance plan, that you need to look into the finance. And Nidal mentioned most of the mitigations and adaptations is going to be relying on funding. Palestine rely on donors. So they have a unconditional, small elements already, things in progressing, but the majority of their contribution is going to come by other funding sources. So they need to look into what's available and how they could actually get the other funding. And part of the capacity building we're doing for Palestine is help them to be able to write proposals for climate funds. So that's where we are. And the most important element, you need to have the political will. And you could hear it from all the people around here, that Palestine has it. So on that basis, I would say congratulate Palestine on their commitment, but they need to be able to have, institutions capable to deliver this. And Palestine at that start point, not at the end point. And then they need to be able to go through the journey and develop their institutions in there. I hope I'll be part of that journey, but we'll see what time will tell. And the last slide to say, thank you very much for listening. And this is a proud Palestinian to say that this is a picture from Paris. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like Dr. Rima, you want to come up again on the panel? It's over with PowerPoint. And if anyone has some questions, comments, remarks. Is there a microphone somewhere? Or
hello? Hi, my name is Atia with American University. I've done a lot of research in Georgia.
the mic is not on. Otherwise, you just come here if it doesn't work. Okay, the other one is working.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Atia. I'm with American University, but I've spent a lot of time in Jordan and my research is based there as well. I'm wondering with the NDCs in Palestine, to what extent do the partnerships for the region play a role in, for example, you were mentioning the Israel, Palestine, and Jordan water project. How are projects such as those going to be continued and strengthened for regional cooperation as well as to develop the transparency and accountability of these issues?
Who wants to answer? Finger points towards.
What's the question?
How important are partnerships in the region for these NDCs? I mean, work with your neighbors. International partnerships.
I think this is part of the work. The question was about the partnership in the region with regard to the implementation of the NDC. So I think we are committed for that such kind of cooperation. And as all of us know that the NDC concept is just a new one for all of us. Whatever in the regional initiatives in that regard, they are most welcome in that regard. But when we're talking about the partnership with Israel, it's another story because they are not in a cooperative in that regard. And when we're talking about working under the regional initiatives, we are talking about the region, but without any kind of cooperation with the Israeli side because they are not cooperative in that regard. I hope that is short and brief. Thank you. And Excellency Adala, if you... Questions, please.
This is Rula Majdalani from ESCWA. Your Excellency, Ms. Adala, you've mentioned about the dumping of waste, of industrial waste. How is, can you tell us how is are the Palestinian authorities addressing this issue, and how does this affect the implementation, I mean, the commitment that you have towards implementing the NDCs? And then another question to Nidal. You mentioned about the accession to accessing finance and technology transfer. Could you tell us a little bit about the challenges in accessing these funds? Thank you.
Thank you. You know that Israel is trying to dump all of the hazardous and even their solid waste in Palestine. There is many landfills, they are using it, especially which is illegally, without any control, even from the civil administration authority, the Israeli one. They are trying to dump most of their hazardous waste near the wall, the apartheid wall, because you know it's forbidden for the Palestinian even to control the area which is near this segregation wall. And you know the economic situation in Palestine, there is high percentage of poverty, unemployed, and they are trying, for example, to encourage people that, okay, we will give you a little bit of, or $100, $200, for example, just dumping, just to give the permit for him to dump the hazardous waste. The people there, they didn't know that these are hazardous waste. So most of the area, especially in the south, for example, most of their e-waste, they are dumping it indirectly by giving the people the opportunity to recycle, let's say, the e-waste and the electric waste in West Bank. Lately, we have been now a party in Basel Convention, and we are trying to use this international law in order to forbid Israelis to let Palestine West Bank area as a dump site for their hazardous waste. I think it's become now, we work towards building more awareness with our people, not to allow for the Israelis to use their land for dumping this waste. Okay, done.
Thank you. Very brief with regard to what you mentioned, Rula. Indeed, very important, the means of implementation, finance, technology, and capacity building. And as we mentioned earlier, for mitigation, we need $1.4 billion from now to 2040. For the adaptation, we need $3.5 billion from now to 2030. So this is with regard to the finance. For the technology, we just have a meeting, and we have already requested a request for the cities in order to just to define what technologies we need to have to be able to implement our national action plans in both directions, the mitigation and adaptation. And this is on board, and this is in the pipeline with the CTCN. With regard to capacity building, we know all we are just a new member of the international community with regard to climate change. So there will be a lot to be done. We have the capacity development program designed for 3 years. We just started by the first year, but we need still the second and third phase to be implemented. So these 3 pillars is of crucial importance to be able to deliver our climate action plan. I hope you answer.
Okay, in spite of that, we are preparing such strategies, plans, etc., etc. I think occupation will delay any projects to be developed or to implement any of projects if he's there. Because, you know, they are controlling, as Rima and the others said, controlling more than 60% of our land, which is in Area C. I think most of the projects in the adaptation plan or any plans, even any development plan, it's in Area C. Most of these areas we are forbidden to even to plant, to cultivate, to have any industry there. So if the occupation continue, I think it's very difficult even to implement any project even in the area.
We'll have a couple of questions, maybe the gentleman over there, then Dr. Adli, then Dr. Hanadi, please.
Hi, my name is Kier Kühne from Lingo, the Leave It in the Ground initiative, and I work with young people all around the world on a campaign called Keep It in the Ground for Peace. As you know, the temperature target of the Paris Agreement leads to a situation where more than 80% of the gas, coal, and oil reserves that we have must be left in the ground, and less than 20% can be extracted. However, none of the governments who are meeting here have come up with a proposal which should be left in the ground. So the campaign of Keep It in the Ground for Peace invites governments who are in dispute with their neighbors over certain territories that have those reserves to analyze the possibility of creating a synergy between peace and security policy and climate policy by leaving those reserves in the ground that are under dispute. So my question is whether this is something that you have already looked at, or whether you would be willing to look at, because I know that offshore Gaza there is gas potential, and it's a conflict potential, right? So maybe Palestine could be a global pioneer on this issue and propose to keep that in the ground and make a contribution to climate change mitigation.
Okay, thanks for the question. If you allow me, Excellencies, Ambassadors, you have the floor. Well, not, yeah, please, Dr. Rima.
Well, I thank you for thinking of this initiative, which sounds extremely interesting to me. But I would differentiate between 2 cases, which are distinctly extremely different. A conflict between on lands or border areas, 2 sovereign countries. In that case, what you stated, what you mentioned is applicable. However, what we have here is a completely different case. It is one country wholly and fully occupied by another. So and the occupying power has the strength and the power to actually exploit all the resources that are available. So in this case, the only solution is to make sure that justice prevails and that that the occupation ends and this country gains its independence from occupation, and then you may be able to have cooperation across borders among equal entities, not among an occupier and an occupied. This is my take on it.
Excellencies, any addition?
No, I haven't.
Excuse me, Dr. Adli.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all the speakers. My name is Imad Adli. I'm the general coordinator of RICARDO. RICARDO is the Arab Network for Environment and Development. When I listened to a presentation from Her Excellency, the Minister, and also about the NDC, I find that, it could be, better than when I hear to any other country that is not going through the same difficulties. So this is why I have to start by saluting the Palestinian Authority and the Minister and all your team and all of the Palestinians actually for being able to work under all these challenges, and you are still delivering higher than others. I have at least a case that within, for example, the project that I'm part of, the Horizon 2020 project with the EU, we were always finding Palestine is ahead of the rest of the countries. But Your Excellency, a few weeks ago, we were organizing under the umbrella of the League of Arab States, the Arab waters under occupation. And what I have found that we have all the elements to show the case better than what we are doing actually. It seems like we have to invest more in showing how Palestinians are suffering. People, they get used to hear that Palestine is occupied, and then they take it like, it is okay. It is just happening, and that's it. But I think we were able to reach an agreement that can deal with the climate issue. We have also to reach an agreement that deal with the situation that does not exist, should not exist actually, and is the only thing that exists in this century. So I think we as civil society, as governments, as regional organizations, we have to work together on finding a strategy to show that, there's an unjust situation going on, and people are talking about next generations, how they are going to suffer from the climate, while we don't care about existing generations every minute. So this shows that, we are talking different, we are using different, standards, and we have the double standards that we are very keen about the future generations, while we are not keen about those who are suffering every day. So I think we have to take out of this the lesson that we have to use, and also to take the people who are working in partnership with, and they are very good allies to Palestine, and we have to work together. It's not only Arab issues, it is a global issue. It is exactly like the climate issue. So less than 2 degrees, but also no occupation.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Adli,
Ahmad.
for your kind words. I think maybe the final one from Dr. Hanadi. And I'm sorry that we are a little bit late. I know, Your Excellencies, you have your commitments, and I'm sorry we are keeping you too late, but only that last one, promise. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this
Closer, please.
good.
Closer.
The microphone.
Okay. Thank you very much for this informative explanation for the situation. And I'm proud for this good and high quality work done in short time. And now you are in similar way with other that starting before 22 years, maybe more. I'm proud also for Mr. Nidal, with us in Arab negotiating group. He do a hard work so as to catch these chances and to put Palestine in the same way with our colleagues and neighbor countries. And also I'm proud for this global partnership with other organizations that do in this same difficult challenges and situation. My question, what is your program concerning the local communities so as to put them in aware concerning that issue now? And they are suffering for daily life. And I think maybe climate change is away from their mind and need to live. They are suffer situation concerning energy and how they are come up with this. Maybe they is a part with climate change solutions, but to capacity building for them and raising awareness, this issue is linked. It needs strategy and work. This one question. Other question, to adopt adaptation programs, do you work and need much money? What is your strategy to save this program after adopting it? Thank you very much in this terrible situation. Thank you.
If we are talking about the local community
engagement,
I think, you know, as you mentioned before, that it's not that priority for the Palestinian even to hear about what's the climate change. But through this project, which is we started in 2013 till now, and it's ongoing, there is an engagement really with the NGOs, with the local governments, with municipalities, with private sector, and there is a lot of initiatives because, you know, especially in Gaza and West Bank, you know, now Gaza is under siege, and there is a movements even from youth. There is a movement in Gaza Strip and even in West Bank, working together for awareness, engagement in many activities in order to raise the awareness about the climate change. And we are always said occupation is a challenge and climate change is another challenge. So it's ongoing. We will work more together to have more municipalities, for example, to be engaged, to put, let's say, some incentives for people to have renewable energy, solar energy. We are working with schools. We are working with the Ministry of Education, also in a project, with the long project with for more awareness. What about climate change and how to combat climate change in this situation? So I think it's a progress program, and we should continue with them.
Thank you, Excellency. Only just to add to the issue of the fund, and it's very important, and this will be the last word about this issue, that without the fund, we will not be able to deliver. And it gives me the opportunity to mention to our excellencies that we have a real problem with the GIF, indeed. We know that for different countries, developing country parties, they should have direct access to the GIF fund for the countries in order to be able to respond to the obligations of the convention. For example, the communication report, the BUR. And usually what is happening, and this is the case of Costa Rica and Uruguay, when they finished and submitted the communication report, within 12 days, they will be able to access the money for the second one. For Palestine, we are approaching the GIF since April with no response whatsoever so far. And I raised this to the COP and the SBI, and I asked them kindly to transfer this to the conference of the parties. Our minister and our ambassador in New York were looking to meet the CEO of GIF from the first day when they are here. No response whatsoever. So indeed, and this never ever happened for any country or party. They are asking for such kind of obligations or reporting and having direct access for this fund. Never ever happened, and that was the discussion with the Secretariat before the opening of the COP. I held a meeting with them, and this never happened, and they promised to help in that regard. But without their support, we will not be able to deliver and to prepare the second communication report. The BUR will not be able to deliver on the NDCs, which everyone is now looking about. So our message is, Your Excellencies, is not to be left behind. And I'm finishing my this, and thank you so much for your time and effort and for your support. And if you allow us, only just a small gift from our minister to the distinguished speakers. Please, Dr. Adala. And this is the Palestinian sunbird. This is the national bird for Palestine. This is only just to remind that we are very thankful for our supporters and distinguished guests. Dr. Rima, please. The other way.
our national it's a Palestinian sunbird. The Israelis tried to steal it and to nominate it as an Israeli
National
sunbird.
But it's wearing the kufiyah, so they can't see it.
Thank you so much. It's really beautiful.
Beautiful.
اسمه طائر الشمس الفلسطيني اسمه
عصفور الشمس الفلسطيني. Palestine sunbird. This is the common name for this bird. It's very nice, a small, very small one, but bright with very bright colors, and is moving very fast, like Palestinians. Okay. Excellencies, thank you so much for coming and for your support, and looking forward for future support. Thank you so much.
Very, very nice. Thanks